Europe was burning under the fire of clashing crowns. Philip II, King of Spain, ruled over an empire where the sun never set. Yet enemies loomed on every front. In England, Elizabeth I defied his authority, supporting Protestants in Flanders and sanctioning privateers like Francis Drake to plunder Spanish ships in the Caribbean and on the Iberian Peninsula. In 1588, Philip made his boldest move, the Invincible Armada, a mighty fleet meant to invade England. But the winds and English naval tactics shattered that dream in the waters of the English Channel. The defeat left open wounds. England wasn't content with simply resisting, it wanted to strike back. The following year, in 1589, Elizabeth I sent a retaliatory force led by none other than Francis Drake. Their objective: burn Galicia, take Lisbon, and spark a rebellion against Philip II in Portugal. From the Tower of Hercules, fire and smoke signals warned the city of danger. The English Armada, led by Sir Francis Drake and composed of over 100 ships and 15,000 men, had arrived. They aimed to sack A Coruña, a fortified city, but unprepared for an attack of such magnitude. There, in the midst of the siege, an ordinary woman became a legend. The defense was uneven. The English were numerous, well-armed, and well-trained, but in the cobbled streets of A Coruña, the resistance did not surrender easily. And thus, the War of Kings and Queens descended from thrones and was fought in stone streets. There, the story of María Pita was born. The walls of A Coruña trembled under the roar of cannons. The English climbed with ropes, with ladders, with rage. Maria was there, beside her husband, handing out water, tending the wounded, shouting orders, until an English bullet struck Gregorio down before her eyes. She took up his spear and looked up. An English officer was scaling the parapet, tall, clad in polished armor, a banner flapping in the wind. With fury and strength, Maria thrust the spear through his chest, and as he fell, she shouted, "Whoever has honor, follow me." That cry lit hearts on fire. The city held. The English retreat from A Coruña in 1589 was chaotic and humiliating, especially for a power that claimed to be invincible. After several days of siege, the English, led by Francis Drake and John Norris, failed to take the city. The assault collapsed in large part due to the fierce resistance of its people, including the decisive actions of María Pita, but also due to internal problems. Poor coordination, alcoholism, lack of supplies, and unknown terrain. To this was added the arrival of reinforcements that began to encircle the English from inland. Seeing themselves at a disadvantage, the English began to embark hastily, leaving behind the dead, the wounded, and even part of the loot. There was chaos in the boarding, and many soldiers deserted or were killed in last-minute skirmishes. A Coruña didn't just resist, it bid farewell to the invaders with artillery fire from the walls. The walls of A Coruña were stained with blood, and although the cannons fell silent, the echo of pain lingered in every street. María Pita walked among the rubble, like someone drifting through a broken dream. Soldiers saluted her with respect. Some lowered their gaze when they met her eyes. She said nothing. The battle was over, but the war of survival had only just begun. Gregorio was dead. She didn't cry in public. The tears came later, in silence, beside the extinguished oil lamp in her bedroom. The spear that had saved her soul hung in the corner. But it did not feed her children. She had 2 mouths to feed, a husband gone, and a name that now weighed like an unwanted coat of arms. The heroine of A Coruña, they called her. But the heroine had no wheat, no oil, no safe roof for winter. Still, she didn't step back. In the days that followed, She helped collect the bodies from the streets, dig graves, and bandage the wounded. She entered homes where cries still echoed and offered water, comfort, or simply her presence. There was no glory in those days, only need. Maria did not ask for charity. She had what she had learned at home since childhood. How to count coins, haggle, sew, read a buyer's face and the silences of a liar. Valladolid bustled with the rustle of papers, horses, and long cloaks. Maria walked through those streets like someone entering an unfamiliar forest, but without fear. She wore no jewels, brought no squires, only a bundle of papers and the memory etched into her skin. The official who received her was a lean man, with ink-stained fingers and a voice dulled by hours of petitions. At first, he looked at her the way men look at a lone woman, from whom they expect nothing. But when she spoke, he straightened up. "I've come from Galicia," Maria said plainly. "I don't ask for charity, only justice. My husband fell at the wall, and I took up his spear. I defended the city like any other soldier. I want my children not to go hungry for having served the king." The man leafed through the papers. They were signed by witnesses, sealed by the city council of A Coruña. There was even a letter from the military governor. Maria waited, eyes unflinching. "What you did was uncommon." "I admit that," said the official, now looking at her with respect. "The king has been informed. He will not receive you in person, but you will be granted a pension. 60 escudos per year, for life, and a license to export goods from Spain to Portugal. It is what is granted to those who have served with valor. Also, by royal decree, you are named an ensign of the king, as a testament to your bravery, and the privileges will extend to your heirs." Maria nodded, without visible emotion, but something in her shoulders eased. It wasn't pride, it was justice. She stood, gathered her papers, and looked one last time at the man who had listened to her. "Thank you, sir. Not for the alms, but for recognizing what we did. Because if the king's banner flies over A Coruña today, it's because some women didn't wait for others to raise it." She left the palace as she had entered, alone but resolute. She was returning home. To her name, to her story. She also secured a small capital by selling land left to her by a relative. With it, she bought merchandise, cloth, salt, oil, Galician wine. She entered a world that barely admitted women. The trade routes between Galicia and northern Portugal. "That's no job for you, Dona Maria," the portman would say. "And burying a husband is?" she would reply, without raising her voice. In Porto and Viana do Castelo, people came to know her. They knew she gave no credit, but never cheated. She dressed simply, in a dark cloak, walking with a steady step. Some said she carried a dagger at her belt. Others, that she could tell if you were lying with just a look. Once in Lisbon, a Portuguese officer recognized her and tried to invite her to dinner. She met his gaze with a mix of courtesy and stone. "The only dinner I accept is one I pay for with my work," she said. "Those that come with empty smiles do not feed me." For years she sailed and traded. She raised her children, married off her eldest daughter, married for the 4th time, and was widowed again. But she no longer needed protection. She had done something harder than killing an Englishman. She lived with dignity among men who never expected her at their tables. She returned to A Coruña for good when age no longer allowed her to sail. There, in the city she had defended, she lived her final years, not in misery, but not in luxury either. In the memory of those who knew the city still breathed because of her. She died as she had lived, with honor, asking no permission. And though the earth covered her body, her voice remained alive in the cobblestones, in the walls, in the Atlantic wind. Because there are names not only carved in stone, but etched in the memory of a people.